Thanks for doing this, Duncan.
My pleasure.
If you could start with introducing yourself and a little bit of your work and what you do, that would be great.
Okay, great. My name's Duncan Witui-Ra. I'm a professor of urban studies at the University of Newcastle, and I worked at UNSW. I started teaching there in 2004 until 2019, mostly in the development studies program, but I was more or less teaching urban type research. I've researched a lot of my life in the borderlands of South Asia, where I was looking at cities during and after armed conflict, and gradually that spun into me taking those urban themes in a slightly different direction, and I've been writing a lot in recent years about skateboarding and urban cultures in different parts of the world.
And you just launched a book, right?
Yeah, I just launched a book. I wrote a book over about 4 or 5 years called Skateboarding and Urban Landscapes in Asia, Endless Spots, and it's about how street skateboarding's traveled to different parts of the world and the kind of cultural geographies that spread through that process. And it's been published by Amsterdam University Press, and I'm really happy with it. It was a really enjoyable experience after studying lots of very heartbreaking things for many years. To study something so joyful and fun was really nice.
That's what I'm trying to communicate this week with the students, that the urban gives you the opportunity to find all these different spots for, that have an opportunity for creativity, building a community, enjoying the urban space, the right to the city, right? Like the right to use the spaces. So where are we at right now?
So we're at Sydney Skate Park, which is quite a new park, but it's in line with a lot of the skate parks that are being built in New South Wales over the past 5 or 6 years. So there's a lot of investment about trying to get skaters into one place. And it's a really beautiful park. It's built with this incredible soft concrete and cement, and it's full of obstacles to keep skaters busy. And you can see now we're on a Friday afternoon, it's packed.
And you were talking about that particular pole over there, right?
Yeah, in fact, a guy just made his trick. So a lot of the obstacles in skate parks these days try to emulate the urban environment. You probably won't be able to see on camera, but there's sort of handrails, there's stairs, there's little bumps that you might find in the urban environment. And yeah, there's ramps that you wouldn't find, but generally everything else are ledges, stairs, curbs, etc. So it's trying to look like the street. So skaters can get the experience of skating out in the urban landscape but in an enclosed environment. And many of them will perfect tricks here and then take them out. One of the more interesting ones is what you call a pole jam. And you can see it, there's a ramp and then there's a pole that's bent like this. Now, what skateboarders would do is they'd find a parking pole or a barrier pole that would stop cars coming in, and you bend it down. You bend it down to about a 45-degree angle so you can skate along, grind up it or ride up it and do a trick off the end. What's fascinating about this park is there's a pre-bent one in there. So whoever's designed the park obviously knows a lot. They're probably a skateboarder themselves. The skateboarders love those things. It's like something already destroyed but put in here new for people to appropriate and enjoy. It's really amazing, actually.
I think, the city of Sydney planned this and work a lot with people that do this for, every day. So they got a lot of input from them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're having a big new park built in Newcastle. I'm going to ask them for a pole jam. This is great. It's really cool. And yeah, it's full of stuff like that. It's great.
I was going to ask you something that you say while you were introducing your book, and it's this idea of the gaze of the city that the community travels with. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I can tell you a bit about it in the form of sort of like an anecdote. So I grew up skateboarding in suburban Sydney. And over the years, I was working more and more in all kinds of other areas that had nothing to do with skateboarding, different parts of the world. But what I found is I was always drawn to the built environment in a particular way. I was always looking low down, and I was always looking for things that could potentially be skated, whether the surfaces were smooth, the angles, the assemblage of things that would go together, even just in my walking around. And what was interesting, I look at photographs I took on fieldwork, and I often took photographs of that, just like, oh, that was a good skate spot, I'll take a photo, etc. And what it made me realize is that gaze you have of looking at the urban landscape and looking for possibilities for creativity and for skateboarding kind of never leaves you. And I think what I'm struggling a little bit with now bringing this into my academic life is, okay, that's fine for the people who are trained in that gaze, who have it, who hone it, to then look everywhere. So I found that a really difficult thing to turn off. But as an academic, I've got to try and turn it on for other people who've never skateboarded. I've got to try and make them understand that, look, you can look at this, and for a whole group of people, millions of them around the world, that seemingly mundane ledge, rail, and stair combination is an object of desire. It's an object that people would want to skate and try things on. And the other thing about that too, Mary Lou, is skaters leave their mark. So you can see a spot's been skated, it might have wax on it, it might have grind marks, paint, it might be a bit chipped, etc, etc, etc. And so for me, when I've been traveling and doing skate research, and your gaze is affixed to something, and then you'll see marks. And the place I remember it most was Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. And I saw this marble ledge was all broken up and had wax. Like, oh my gosh, my people have been here. It's like, I've discovered them. Where are they? Like, I was like, I staked that spot out for hours, like hoping they would come. And it's a form of communication, you know, between people across time and space that's lodged in the built environment. And I find that really fascinating, like really and truly fascinating. And I think for students, there's many different things. It doesn't have to be skateboarding, but I think there's so many ways, from people putting stickers up in places to graffiti to knitting to guerrilla gardening, that I think lodge kinds of communication across urban space, which are fascinating to map.
Yeah, and that energy is what we want to give to students and just get them excited about the possibilities of finding these ways of communication, right? These languages.
Yeah,
that
totally.
make you find your people.
It is, and you know what was so strange about someone who was trained in really boring social science methods.
Not boring.
Sorry. Cut. No, I was going to say about ones that were boring, right? That I'd spend so much time interviewing people, right? And I wouldn't pay any attention to the space around where I was, what I was doing, etc., etc., etc. I always thought that was what I did in my personal way of looking at the city. That wasn't academic enough. That wasn't, and of course that's false, right? And I think what students are probably discovering, that walking around your neighborhood, observing what's there, taking note of it, thinking about image, video, sound, feeling, affect, you know, all these things. They're legitimate methods. They're real ways of finding out about society and how it's lodged in space in different ways. And I think that's really valuable. And I wish someone had encouraged me more to do that, you know, when I was an undergraduate.
Thanks so much for doing this, for this conversation.
My pleasure.
As urban geographers, we would pay attention to these details, to the objects that have been marked and that are trying us to tell a story, that are telling us a story about something. So when you are out there trying to find your object, please think about these different languages that we can read and we can try to understand. Thank you.